We all need to be paying more attention to China's Bitcoin mining Trojan horse. Now, this Trojan horse was something that I discovered in an article dropped literally this week, as you can see, and I feel like the timing of this article and China's Trojan horse is very interesting because we have three different nations that we're going to be talking about today who are kind of flip-flopping on Bitcoin laws. Some are welcoming Bitcoin, some are banning Bitcoin, some are debating new Bitcoin mining rules and regulations. And I have a feeling like all of it is related. So today we are going to be discussing what this Bitcoin mining Trojan horse is. But I want to first kind of show you all of the flip-flopping that is going on between all of the different nation states this month in April, okay? So we can see here on April 9th, this article dropped on TFTC. Costa Rica debates Bitcoin regulation amid a proposed legislation. And then literally the day after that, look at the next article that dropped. This is actually April 8th, so the day before. Paraguay's proposed Bitcoin mining ban could cost them $200 million. A day after this, have a look at what else I found. Paraguay came out and they said, yeah, you know what? We're actually going to reconsider our Bitcoin mining ban. And then, of course, most of you guys would be familiar with Norway. This was the most publicized piece of news we're going to be talking about today. Lots of people talked about this crackdown that Norway is thinking about, as they're going to become the first country in Europe to introduce regulations for data centers aimed at controlling which projects are permitted to use all of that data. Okay, so there's a lot happening in April. That's what I want to kind of set the stage about before we really dive into explaining what this Chinese Trojan horse is, okay? Everything is happening in April in regards to nation state Bitcoin mining. I find it fascinating, and at the end of today's video, I'm going to loop all of these little puzzle pieces together to make sense of what is actually happening. So let's start explaining what this is, the Trojan horse, China's Trojan horse. So we can see here, China holds an alarming amount of power over Bitcoin miners in the United States. Congress should act to scale back China's influence. Okay, this is interesting. And I did see this article dropped in Coin Center, and we can see here the author says, the threat of China continues to emerge at the center of these discussions. The US has answered perceived technology threats from companies like, I can't even pronounce that, Hawaii. You guys in the chat, let me know how you pronounce that company, but they're the company who does all of the 5G telecommunication stuff for China. And then obviously we've also attacked TikTok and many Chinese EV car manufacturers. But something different is happening with Bitcoin. We can see here, Bitcoin miners represent a potential silent threat at the US energy and telecom infrastructure. So what does that mean? Well, we can see from this chart here, China dominates the supply of ASICs for Bitcoin mining. We can see that 98% of today's chips that are found in Bitcoin miners mainly come from a few large manufacturers, including a company called Bitmain. That is a Chinese company, by the way. These chips are designed in China, but they are manufactured by TSMC using their latest and most advanced manufacturing process, okay? So for those who don't know, TSMC is the largest semiconductor company in the world. They are centered out of Taiwan, which again is one of the key reasons for why most people think that China wants to invade Taiwan and take it over, because TSMC is there. They produce something like 90% of the world's semiconductor chips. Okay, and it looks as if some people are starting to notice that this is potentially a risk factor if many of these chips are being used in Bitcoin mining machines. Okay, so let's jump back to the article. It's a fascinating one. So we can see here, there is a significant threat to US trade policy and competitiveness, not to mention the risk this poses to national security. This undercuts not only the tariffs, but also the much publicized CHIPS Act and its efforts to increase domestic semiconductor manufacturing in America. So again, is this Chinese Trojan horse, is it just, you know, some strange theory written by some random dude in a Coin Center article? It could be. but it looks as if America is actually already aware of this threat and this centralization of semiconductor chips. Okay, let's have a look at this. So we can see here, I just mentioned the CHIPS Act in this article. For those who don't know, America passed a $50 billion package, so to say, and it was actually called the CHIPS Act way back in 2022. Now, again, 2022 was the year that the world began deglobalizing. I believe that will be kind of remembered as an inflection point when globalization finished. Okay, that was the year that the US froze, was it $600 billion of US treasuries that Russia was holding on their balance sheet. And since then, we've seen countries like China team up with Russia and countries like Saudi Arabia exit the petrodollar system and begin selling their precious oil in other foreign currencies. Okay, so I think 2022 is a massive year. And that was the year, coincidentally, that America passed the CHIPS Act. So we can see here, let's explain what it is for those who are unaware and why it is related to China's Bitcoin mining Trojan horse. So the future of China-US chip war. Beijing sees no choice but to have the state take control of its tech industry amid US pressure. Okay, so we can see here that in 2022, the US stepped up its competition with China in the semiconductor industry. In August, Biden signed the Chips and Science Act, $52.7 billion industrial policy that aims to bolster research, enhance supply chain resiliency, and revitalize semiconductor production in the United States. Okay, so again, that's a little bit of a mouthful. That's a little bit of a word salad. All this $52 billion act was aiming to do was to actually bring the production of semiconductor chips over into the US. Okay, 90% of the world's semiconductors are produced in Taiwan, right next door to China. The US has said, okay, this is a threat. Some people are saying, look, the fact that, America controls 30% of the global Bitcoin hash rate and the fact that the majority of the chips used in the Bitcoin mining machines that America is using are made in Taiwan, that's potentially a threat. So America is saying, look, we need to actually take control of the semiconductor manufacturing supply chain. Okay, so it's a fascinating thesis. It's a fascinating story, and it is very interesting. And it's, as you can see, it's a long article. I'm not going to go through the whole thing for you guys, but I think that, this idea of China and America essentially going to war with each other, it's a very interesting idea to explore because as we see the world deglobalize, more and more countries don't know what to do. Okay. And I think Paraguay is the best example of this. Okay. So we can see on April 8th, this article dropped talking about Paraguay, talking about a Bitcoin ban. Okay. So we can see lawmakers introduced a bill on April 4th. Okay. And they were saying, look, cryptocurrency mines steal power and disrupt the country's electricity supply. If passed, the ban would last 180 days or until new laws are enacted and the national power grid operator can ensure it can supply sufficient energy. Okay, we can see here, but some people are pushing back. Some people are saying, look, this is not a good idea for Paraguay to actually do it. We can see banning Bitcoin mining could cost Paraguay more than $200 million a year, assuming the country has 500 megawatts of legal miners paying 5 cents per kilowatt in operating expenses. And this is interesting. Some people have kind of, as soon as this law was passed, some people were like, hey, Paraguay, you're making a mistake. You need to run the numbers. You need to have a think about this a little bit deeper. And look what happens literally in the days after this article was published. So that article was originally published on April 8th, and the law was proposed on April 4th. We can see now Paraguay on April 11th is reconsidering Bitcoin mining ban. Moles selling energy to miners. Paraguay's lawmakers have proposed an alternative to a controversial Bitcoin mining blanket ban and are set to debate the topic later this month. So again, what is happening in April? Why are nations not able to come to a consensus with what to do with their Bitcoin mining? We can see here this debate will be held on April 23rd. It's a public hearing to discuss the benefits and drawbacks of Bitcoin mining in the country. Senator confirmed this, and it comes a week after lawmakers introduced the bill that would ban Bitcoin in the country of Paraguay. Okay, so I think this is, again, massive signpost. Nation states don't know what to do. They don't know what to do with Bitcoin mining. They have absolutely no idea. Okay. Again, something similar is happening in South America. Should I say Central America, close to Paraguay, and that is Costa Rica. So again, look at it's the date that I think is most interesting of all of these, things that are happening. Okay, so all of that was happening the first week of April for Paraguay. Have a look at this article. April 9th, Costa Rica is also debating regulations amid proposed Bitcoin mining legislations. So we can see here, Jan 3, this is the company that the Giga Chad, Samson Mao, is the CEO of and created. And this is his company where he tries to orange pill nation states. So Jan 3 tweeted out, like most countries, Costa Rica lacks proper legislation concerning the ownership and trading of Bitcoin and other digital assets. Okay, so they are actively talking and debating about what is happening in Paraguay. You can see, here he is, the Giga Chad, Samson Mao in Paraguay with Prince Serbia, talking about Bitcoin nation state adoption in Paraguay. You can see they're looking at the enormous amount of hydro power the country has in Costa Rica, has an enormous amount of natural hydro power. Very similar to El Salvador. A lot of the countries in this region, it's obviously known to be a little bit of a volcanic region. So, there's a lot of natural energy and a lot of power there. But right now, it appears as if Costa Rica doesn't know what to do. Okay, so according to Jan 3, the nation has resumed debates around a potential law that could compromise the ability to use Bitcoin freely and change everything. Okay, so it's going to be big. Whatever happens in Costa Rica, it's happening now at the same time that Paraguay is also debating a similar law. Now, I did once again only just think of this as I popped onto this tab. So I'm going to actually show you a really interesting chart that emerged in 2021. After Bukele, made Bitcoin legal tender, as you will be able to see by this chart here, a lot of nations in, Latin America, South America, they were kind of exploring Bitcoin, so to say. So this chart here, I don't know if you guys can see it. It's showing all of the different countries in South America and Latin America that were beginning to, debate Bitcoin as legal tender and adopting Bitcoin. Okay, as you can see, there was discussions from a lot of different countries: Argentina, Brazil, Venezuela, Mexico. Most people who weren't here in the last cycle might forget, but there was a female government member in Mexico, obviously trying to push through a bill through parliament to make Bitcoin legal tender. We can see obviously El Salvador, Nicaragua, and Panama were all debating Bitcoin regulation and legal tender in the countries surrounding, El Salvador actually making Bitcoin legal tender. So again, another country that's left off this map was actually Paraguay. So Paraguay was actually talking about, using Bitcoin mining to their advantage way back in 2021. So I expect in this next bull run, as price continues to go up and El Salvador's, treasury strategy is vindicated, and it is known that it was obviously the best decision to make Bitcoin legal tender, it will become very obvious that other nation states will probably once again get very interested in Bitcoin. Okay. And again, you guys know that we've speculated for a long time here on the channel that, the reason the hash rate is hitting new all-time highs in the middle of the 2022 bear market was because nation states were mining Bitcoin. Okay, again, we've talked about this thread. I wrote this one for Satoshi in July 2023. At the time, most people thought Bitcoin was going to 12K, but I was saying, look, this is strange. Why is the hash rate going parabolic while the price is still at $20,000 per coin? This is strange. Something's happening in the country. That was the case I was making. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about the nation state hash race in a moment, but I do want to check on the chat. Johnny Midas is in the chat. Greetings, my friend. These countries. Okay, so Chris makes an interesting point. These countries you are naming, why push back unless they are being told by US or the EU to be against it? Who knows? I think a lot of these countries want to escape the US rule. A lot of these countries have let's say, suffered from influence from, the US government. Like, I mean, I would encourage everyone to read the book, The Economic Hitman, a very interesting book talking about how a lot of, let's say, governments' elections were swayed and influenced by US and Western governments all throughout the 1970s, 80s, 90s, and 2000s. So I would encourage you to read the book. It is a fascinating book, and it's an interesting thought experiment. Fuck. Oh, shit. I shouldn't swear, but Bill, $20 super chat. Man, thank you so much. That's the second time you've given me a $20 super chat. I really appreciate that. I'd rather give a fellow Bitcoiner 20 worthless government pieces of paper who works his ass off than buy a shitcoin. Yeah, 100% Bitcoin. Thank you so much, Bill. Really, really appreciate that, dude. Your generosity helps Pam and I out a lot. So thank you so much. As you say, Bitcoin only content is the go. Third time, Bill sent me three $20 super chats. Dude, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate that. Pam and I both really, really appreciate it. Dan says, very comprehensive analysis of global political and current events. There's a lot happening right now. And again, this week, guys, I think this week is a massive week. It's such a big week that I'm going to drag my ass to actually write something. I hate writing. I actually prefer talking shit on YouTube. I used to do a lot of writing. Some of you guys might know that or not, but I'm going to actually drag myself to write an article because I think the past week was the most influential week in Bitcoin history. Again, that's a big statement, but I feel like the attacks are happening right now, okay? Obviously, the Bitcoin halving happened on April 20th, and then beginning on April 24th, all of these Bitcoin companies have been attacked, okay? So the US government seized Samurai Wallet's website. They shut down the ability for us to use a Bitcoin wallet that gave us privacy. That's what Samurai Wallet was, for those who missed that live stream. And they went out there, they hunted down the two anonymous kind of co-founders of Samurai. They went all the way to Portugal to get one of them. And they chucked them in jail. And they said, yeah, you know what? You created a Bitcoin wallet. How dare you? That's very illegal. Criminals use that Bitcoin wallet. So we're going to put you in jail and charge you for money laundering $100 million. Okay, so this happened on April 24th. And then the next day, more things happened. So the FBI came out with an official notice, and they said, be very careful using any Bitcoin exchange that doesn't collect your KYC information. They said you should only use Bitcoin exchanges that collect your KYC. Don't use anything that allows you to, transact peer-to-peer. And this happened the day after, April 25th. April 26th, we had the Phoenix wallet officially leave America. They said, sorry, we're too scared of all of the attacks happening in America. We can't actually offer our service within the US right now because things are happening so quickly. We also had Wasabi, April 27th, leave the US and say, sorry, we can't serve customers in the US. So again, I think stay tuned. There was a comment here kind of saying, look, there's a lot happening, global political events. And I think right now we're being attacked. And all of these events happened at the same time that the US just passed that new federal tax law. So they're now taxing citizens 44.6%, and they're proposing a 25% unrealized capital gains tax only on people above, $10 million of net worth. But again, you know what they say. They come for the billionaires first, but then they're going to come for us. So again, and Biden also signed the TikTok bill. So this was all in the matter of 6 days. So I think things are happening very quickly right now. Crazy things are happening. Really interesting things are happening. One smart fella says, buy the dip. And I think sound advice, buy the dip, my friend. Buy the dip. Everything's happening right now. Everything is happening right now. Dingo Booty was roasting someone in the chat, apparently. I want to see the roast. I better not see the roast. I get distracted with the live chat too often. I got a ton of you guys in there. What's it called? Look, you can get some new shirts now. Yeah, there's a running joke on the channel that I need new shirts. I've only got two, and one of them has a big toothpaste stain up on one of my right shoulders. So let's move on. Let's get Luke back on track. I apologize. Let's talk a little bit more about what is going on. Okay, so again, I think my thesis has been that nation states have been mining Bitcoin for a long time. Now that America controls so much of the global hash rate, if I would actually show you guys how much it is, in the US. I think Texas alone has like 20% of the global hash, which is absolutely ridiculous when you think about it. Can't find it. I want to show you guys a chart. I hate just pulling stats out of my rear end. Okay, so here it is. Texas is home to nearly 30% of all Bitcoin hash rate. This is just Texas. Okay, so this is why I think a lot of people are, beginning to come to the realization that there's going to be a war over semiconductor chips in the future. Okay, that's a bold statement, but I think semiconductors are the new oil. Okay, again, I think a lot of people talk about, we're moving into this attention commodity, but I think semiconductors are the new oil. 20th century, think about all of the wars fought over oil. Think about it for a minute. We were on a petrodollar standard, and all the wars were fought over that commodity, which was oil. I think we're transitioning away from a petrodollar standard where the US Treasury bond backed by oil was the global reserve asset. I think we're moving into something where Bitcoin is going to actually be the global reserve asset for the 21st century. So I think what is the commodity for Bitcoin? Semiconductor chips. Okay. If we're going to see a nation state hash race and all of these nations continue mining Bitcoin, they're going to need the chips. They're going to need the chips that power the Bitcoin miners. Okay. So again, I think that there is going to be a fight over the chips in the not too distant future. We can see here, Texas is home to 30% of all of the global Bitcoin hash rate, which is honestly incredible when you really think about it. You can see here, this is a heat map showing you where a lot of the Bitcoin mining power resides. Again, pretty cool chart. I do love a chart. I'm a sucker for a chart. Too bad I can't close the chart now. So again, we've got some nations warming up to Bitcoin. And again, everything's happening this month in April. So Hong Kong is scheduled to approve their Bitcoin ETF this Tuesday. So stay tuned for that. That's coming. And we're going to be breaking that down. South Korea getting into the realm of Bitcoin ETFs as well. You guys know, I think this is pretty significant. But something that's even more significant is what's happening with these large, bloated Western governments. Because, again, we've seen this headline come out, again, literally this week in Canada, April 22. So that was this week. Crypto miners face energy refusal and restriction in Canadian provinces. So, again, this has kind of been on the cards for a long time in Canada. And we can see here, big mining regulations in Canada, they've been fighting this war for a couple of years. In late 2022, Hydro-Quebec announced its proposal for the province to stop selling cheap power to cryptocurrency miners. Right after Thanksgiving, Manitoba announced its plans to halt any new electric grid connections for crypto mining operations. The suspension will last for 18 months from November 2022. So this was the beginning of the war on Bitcoin mining in Canada. Canada has declared a local war on Bitcoin mining. I love the title of that. So this was 2022, 2023, and it looks as if April 22nd, 2024, so this week, we're learning more about what is happening in Canada. Okay, right now, they're coming. The attacks are coming for Bitcoin. They come in for Bitcoin in Canada. And I think it's interesting that we have, it's a lot of these large, bloated Western nation states. They're the ones attacking Bitcoin, okay? So America is attacking Bitcoin. Europe is attacking Bitcoin. Norway in the EU attacking Bitcoin miners and, telling data centers who can and cannot actually use power over there. And if you look at it, looks as if these smaller, more nimble countries like El Salvador, Paraguay, Costa Rica, they're the ones who are being a little bit more open and saying, yeah, you know what? Let's actually openly discuss the positives of what is going on with Bitcoin mining. Now, I think all of this can be explained by that one book, The Sovereign Individual. For those who don't know, it was written in 1996, and it was a book that actually predicted Bitcoin. But it also predicted why these large Western nation states are acting so tyrannical today and why we have countries like Canada outlawing podcasters from being able to use free speech in the country. Okay, I don't know if you guys know or not, but in Canada, if you're a podcaster, you need a license from the government. And now the government is obviously freezing Bitcoin. The government is also coming out there and right now this week banning Bitcoin mining. But I think there could be something really interesting happening in Canada in the the not too distant future, because we have the potential to get a Bitcoin president. Okay, I can't pronounce his name, but Pierre Poilievre, I don't know how to pronounce his name, but right now, if you guys were not aware, he is actually, if the election was held today, he would be the next Prime Minister of Canada. Okay, you can see here, Justin Trudeau, 31%, Pierre, 40%. So he would be the next Prime Minister of Canada if an election happened tomorrow. So I thought it would be time to first, before I talk a little bit more about Canada, answer Bill's question. The more they try to stop Bitcoin, the more they just show their fear. They might be able to slow it down, but they will never stop it. That's actually exactly what I think as well, Bill. I think, the more they're attacking Bitcoin, that shows how scared they are of Bitcoin. Okay. It's, when they're not saying anything about Bitcoin, they don't care about Bitcoin. They think they're winning, but I think we are winning. And again, a lot of people ask me, Luke, if I'm living in Australia or Canada, what should I do? Canada might get a Bitcoin president next year in 2025, but they're going down all of these Orwellian pathways. What do I do with my passport? Do I consider leaving? Do I go and get an El Salvadorian passport? Well, for you guys who didn't know, producer Pam and myself just created a YouTube channel last week, and we are going to be going live in about 5 minutes to discussing what is going on with Canada. And as you can see by the title, would I ever get a Canadian passport? So you guys know that I'm actually renouncing my Australian citizenship in the not too distant future. So in this video that we're about to go live in, I'm going to be discussing what I would do if I was Canadian. Would I renounce my Canadian citizenship? Would I go and buy an El Salvador $1 million freedom passport? Or would I do something different? Because I've actually found a little bit of a loophole for Westerners like myself to get not only one passport like you do get in El Salvador, but you can get two passports essentially nearly for free. So I'm going to be talking about what I'm doing right now with my Australian citizenship passport and what I would do if I was a Canadian, because I do have a lot of Canadian friends, and here in El Salvador you'd be shocked at how many Canadians there are. So to quickly answer that question, if you renounce your citizenship, you can get your superannuation. I honestly don't know. I have no money in my superannuation. I've drained all that, and I've obviously plowed it all into cash, of course. That's what the government wants to hear. I only have cash. I don't have Bitcoin. So if you guys want to learn more about Canada, I'm going to jump on over, do a live stream on our brand new YouTube channel, Two Digital Nomads. I'm sure Pam will Pam's already put a link in the chat to that live stream. So again, if you guys want to come over there, come check it out. We're going to be talking about more things to do with nomading on that channel. And with all that said, thank you so much to everyone who tuned in today. Thank you so much for people like Bill, massive super chats. I really, really appreciate that, my man. Really appreciate the love. We got a number of regulars in the chat. We got Dan M, McLovin, Phil. Phil says like button is smashed. If you guys enjoy this video, smash the like button. That helps the algo, helps push this propaganda in front of the eyes of more people, I believe. So with all that said, I'm going to see you guys over on the Two Digital Nomads YouTube channel in about 5 or 10 minutes. So see you soon.